What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'm going to go over each game and just go over the players that I think you should start or sit in each of those matchups. I'm sort of switching up when I release this video. I decided that maybe it makes the most sense for me to be releasing this one on Saturdays, just so that I can, have all the most up-to-date information. I'll start sits in terms of injuries and all that. So if you guys would like this video to come out somewhat earlier in the week, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to move that date around. I just figured that it doesn't make a lot of sense to make some suggestions on a Thursday when a lot of injuries could change that around. So I'm open to suggestions there. As always, if you do have any specific start sit questions, you're more than welcome to ask me in the comments below. I'm happy to get back to you. I should be able to get back to you fairly quickly. Really want to help you guys out as much as possible. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting week. I want to thank everyone for all the support again. It's been really exciting seeing how much you guys love interacting with the content. We have sort of slowed down the subscriber count, but that's all good. I get it. People sort of start losing interest a little bit after once the season starts. But if this is your first time on the channel, I do want to thank you for stopping by. Please do take a minute to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps. It really helps support what we're doing here. It really just helps me want to keep working and keep putting out content. So yeah, once again, thank you for everything. And with that, let's get into the first matchup. First game here should be a really fun one. We have the Bills at the Dolphins. For me, I'm going to start pretty much your very typical Bills starters. You're going to start Josh Allen. You're obviously starting Stephon Diggs. And you're going to start Gabe Davis if he plays. I expect Gabe Davis to play tomorrow, but if he doesn't, I'm not super stoked about anyone else in the terms of the pass catchers. Nobody else really stepped up last week. I think you could play McKenzie or Kumaro as like a dart throw in DFS or something like that, but I don't love either of it, so I'll probably just stick to Diggs and not play any other pass catchers there. I think you can start Singletary as a low-end running back too. I'd obviously prefer to have a better option, but if you don't, I get why you need to start Singletary. He's definitely viable. And as great as the Dolphins have looked so far, I think I'm still only comfortable starting Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'm just not quite convinced that I can start Tua yet, especially against this Bills defense that we've seen really just manhandle some pretty competent offenses. So for me, then I'm going to sit Dawson Knox here. Dawson Knox is a really great player. I think he'll be more involved going forward, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't trust him in my lineup yet. I already touched on why I'm sitting Tua, just because I think that this defense is going to be really tough on him. And we did see Tua struggle in week 1 against a good defense in the Patriots. And I think I'm going to sit both Dolphins running backs here in Edmonds and Mostert. If you need to start one, I still think you want to start Edmonds just because of the pass catching ability, and this could be a game that they're playing from behind in. But I mean, they were behind by 21 points at some point last week, and Edmonds had 1 catch. So what do I know? That's the thing. I don't know how this backfield shakes up. I have a lot of Chase Edmonds in a lot of my leagues, and I'm hurting there, so I hate sitting him. I do have to start him in one of my leagues because I only have Jonathan Taylor. I want Hero RB there, so Edmonds is slotted in as my running back too still, so that's a little disappointing, but I think if you have a better option, I'd definitely look to sit both Dolphins running backs. Next game here is going to be the Bengals at the Jets. I do expect this to be a bit of a get-right game for the Bengals here. So I'm obviously going to start Joe Burrow. You're going to start Joe Mixon. You're going to start both pass catchers for the Bengals and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I don't think you want to start Tyler Boyd or Hayden Hurst. I just think that they're not involved enough, and I do expect the Bengals to get out to a pretty early lead in this one and then probably lean on Mixon. So it might be a pretty low-scoring second half in terms of the fantasy production from these guys. So I don't think there's going to be enough to go around for everybody there. On the Jets side of the ball, I'm really only comfortable starting Michael Carter and then Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. I would prefer to start Garrett Wilson over Elijah Moore, but Elijah Moore has been on the field a ton. He's still really talented. I'm not out on him by any means, so I think I'm okay starting Elijah Moore as like a low-end wide receiver 3 this week. Michael Carter is the running back you want to start in New York right now. He's getting most of the work. He's getting a lot of targets. Breece Hall sort of saved his fantasy production last week with that 10-yard receiving touchdown. It's really nice to see that Breece Hall can do that, but I just don't want to bank on a touchdown on a player that's not getting a full-time role, so I'm going to sit him, and I'm going to sit Tyler Conklin as well. I mean, the tight end position is a bit of a dumpster fire, so if you need to start Conklin, you can, but I think the Bengals are going to absolutely manhandle the Jets in this one. They're going to get right, and I don't want to be a part of that offense if I can. I don't want to invest too much in the Jets if I don't have to. Next game here is going to be the Raiders at the Titans. This is going to be a battle of two 0-2 teams that really do need to get a win this week. Your odds of making the playoffs are something like 3% if you fall to 0-3. So both these teams are going to be playing for their seasons, and I expect it to be a pretty competitive game. I would pick the Titans in this one, but that's not really what this video is about. Obviously, on the Raiders side of the ball, you're going to start Devontae Adams and Darren Waller. Looks like Hunter Renfrow is going to miss this one, and I don't think that there's any other pass catcher that steps up and fills that void. And also, Josh Jacobs is going to be missing this game in all likelihood. He didn't travel with the team on Friday due to an illness, so you're obviously not going to start Josh Jacobs. And I'm not confident in Zamir White taking over a full workload, nor am I confident in starting either Amir Abdullah or Brandon Bolin. So all the Raiders running backs are out of play for me. And on the Titans side of the ball, it's pretty easy. You're obviously going to start Derrick Henry. I know it's been a tough start, but he'll get it together this week. He should have a much better game. And I think this is the week I'm willing to start Treylon Burks. He's been more and more involved over the first 2 weeks. He looks really good when he plays, and I think this is going to be the first week that he gets a full complement of snaps. Obviously not a full complement. They're still working him into the offense, but he's the clear Titans wide receiver that you want to own, and he's the only one that I'd be comfortable starting. I'm not really comfortable starting any of the quarterbacks in this game. Obviously, I would lean Derek Carr in this one if you need to start a quarterback here, but Derek Carr just doesn't have that upside, no rushing floor or any of that, so I don't want to bank on that in a game that I think the Titans are going to have to play really competitive defense and slow the ball down. So I'm out on both quarterbacks here. Next game here is going to be the Saints at the Panthers. This one's also pretty easy for me. You're going to start Alvin Kamara, assuming he plays. I expect him to. I'm not worried about that, really. And you're going to start Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. You're going to start Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore only on the Panthers side of the ball. I know that Robbie Anderson had that really great week 1, but that's not going to be sustainable. You can play him as a dart throw in your flex if you just want to bank on a big touchdown, but the Saints are a good defense. It's not going to happen this week. And I don't want to start Jarvis Landry if I can avoid it. He just doesn't have that touchdown upside. He's not much of a big play guy, and more Chris Olave is going to be integrated into this offense. It's going to be a pretty clear 1-2 punch between Michael Thomas and Olave, and I'd expect Landry to get phased out. I'm not starting another quarterback in this game. If I had to, I would start Jameis, but he's playing through some banged up backbones. I don't want to call it a broken back, but it sort of sounds like it is. And I don't want to play into the tight ends here. None of them are getting enough attention, but I do want to keep an eye on Juwan Johnson for the Saints. He's running a lot of routes. He had 4 for 40 last week, so he's a guy that you could eventually see yourself using if you're streaming the tight end position at the end of the season. The next game here is going to be the Ravens at the Patriots. This one, again, is another pretty easy one for me. Obviously, you're going to start Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Rashad Bateman. I don't think you want to start any other Ravens in this one. Devin Duvernay's looked great, but he's just been too big play dependent. I'm not going to bank on that in this one. I expect this to be a much more low-scoring game than the last game for the Ravens. And I don't want to start any Ravens running backs. It looks like J.K. Dobbins is going to be ready to play in this one, but I don't know how much work he's actually going to get. Is he going to get 50% of the snaps, 40, 60? Who knows? And I don't want to bank on that. Dobbins is a guy that I'm not comfortable playing until I see him do it on the field. And on the Patriots side of the ball, I don't think I trust any pass catcher. I think I'm willing to start both running backs, but you're going to be disappointed if they don't find the end zone. So I do lean Ramondre Stevenson. He got the most work last week. He's obviously got the most pass catching upside, but Damian Harris has been the better fantasy running back. So I think you can play both of them as low-end RB2s/flex plays, but I don't love it. There's not really been a Patriots pass catcher that stepped up much for me. Jacoby Myers does look like he's going to be really good this season. He's going to be a usable flex, but he's been dealing with a bit of a knee issue this week. I would lean against just playing an already questionable starter with an injury, but if you do need to play Myers, you can use him in the flex, but he's the only one I've even looking at. If Myers misses, I guess you could take that dart throw with Nelson Aguilar, but when has Aguilar ever really been great for 2 weeks in a row? I wouldn't count on it, and I just don't want to be a part of that. This next game is one that I'm really excited about this week. We've got the Lions at the Vikings. I think this game is going to be a super high-scoring game. I expect it to be really a get-right game for a couple players here, but obviously on the Lions side of the ball, you're going to start DeAndre Swift. He is listed as questionable for tomorrow, so do keep that in mind. If Swift misses, I think Jamal Williams is a pretty much auto start here. Jamal Williams has looked good. He's getting the goal line work, so you can play him, especially if Swift misses. I wouldn't be looking to start Jamal Williams otherwise. I know he's not listed there, but Jamal Williams is a sit for me unless Swift is in which case he's an obvious start. You're also going to be starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, he's been absolutely bananas to start this year. He's going to be a wide receiver 1 this season. I'm super stoked about it. I've loved him this all offseason. I'm happy to see it really come into fruition this season. TJ Hawkinson's had a bit of a down year so far. He's not great, but the whole tight end position sucks, so you got to start Hawkinson. You can, be sad about it, but you kind of have to. And I think we're going to start all of our Vikings this week. The Vikings are going to have a much better game this week. They're going to bounce back from their Eagles. Tough loss, but they're going to start Kirk Cousins. He's going to have an absolutely monster week. He averages over 280 passing yards and over 2 touchdowns per game against the Lions. So I expect him to have a really great week. And that's going to mean that he can support Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Irv Smith. Irv Smith does look like he's going to be an integral part of this offense. He had a really good fantasy week last week, and he dropped what should have been like a 60-yard touchdown. So Irv Smith obviously has a lot of upside at a tight end position that just upside's hard to come by. I think also Dalvin Cook's going to get right this week. I'd expect him to run for over 100 yards and a touchdown. This game's going to be just an absolute shootout, I think. I think you're going to see a lot of points put up in this one, so I think really you can start everybody. I do have Jared Goff listed as a sit because I have him ranked outside of my top 15 at the quarterback position, but if you're streaming the quarterback position, I think he could do a lot worse than Jared Goff this week as well. This next game here is going to be the Eagles at the Commanders. This is another game that I expect to be really high scoring. We've seen the Commanders' defense be pretty abysmal so far. I don't expect that to change against an Eagles offense that's absolutely rolling so far. And I think that even though the Eagles' defense is pretty good, I think the Commanders have enough offense to keep up in this one. So I think it's going to be a competitive game. I'm still betting on the Eagles here, but because you're going to see a lot of points put up in a competitive game, I think you want to start pretty much everyone in this one. I'm obviously going to start Jalen Hurts, Sanders, Brown, Goddard, and Devonta Smith. And I think you can start Carson Wentz this week. I think I have him ranked as my quarterback 13. So you don't need to start Carson Wentz, but you certainly can, especially in deeper leagues or if you're streaming the position. You're going to start Antonio Gibson. He's getting enough work that he's going to be usable. If the Commanders do fall behind on this one, I think McKissick could have a decent game, but I would generally like to avoid starting J.D. McKissick. Obviously, lots of teams went hero RB or zero RB this season, so maybe you're starting J.D. McKissick. It's just a desperation. Please get me 10 points in PPR. I think you can, but I wouldn't love that. And I think you're going to start all three of the Commanders' pass-catching wide receivers. They've just all looked really good so far. It's been kind of weird to see McLaurin be the odd man out, really, but McLaurin's the best of these three. They're all three going to have enough volume and an offense that's going to have to put up a lot of points, so you can use all three of them. And I still want to sit Logan Thomas one more week here. I know he had the touchdown last week, but he only had 3 receptions. I'm not really going to bank on that every week, so I want to see Logan Thomas come back and be a little bit more involved before I start trusting him every week. This matchup should be a really fun one. We've got the Chiefs visiting the Colts. I think this one's actually going to be a bit of a shocker. I do actually think the Colts are going to win this game. It's sort of a must-win game for them, and they're going to get Michael Pittman back, so I think they're going to have a pretty good week here. But obviously, you're going to start the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't feel confident starting any of the Chiefs wide receivers this week. It seems like it's going to be too hard to predict which one of these guys has a good week. I honestly am just out on starting any of them. Of all of them, really the one that I think might have the most upside by the end of the season is Sky Moore. They talked about getting him more involved, but obviously you're not going to start Sky Moore this week. He hasn't been involved in the offense, but I think he's the one that's got the best shot to really take over as that clear number one wide receiver by the end of the season. But I'm going to sit all these Chiefs wide receivers unless I absolutely need a desperation flex play. And on the Colts side of the ball, it's pretty easy. You're starting Jonathan Taylor. You're starting Michael Pittman Jr., and that's about it. You're going to sit Matt Ryan in this one. You're going to sit Naheem Hines. You can play Naheem Hines. He's sort of in that same realm of the J.D. McKissick, where a world does exist in this one where the Colts fall behind early and then they got to play catch up. And then Naheem Hines gets quite a bit of dump downs, and PPR is his way to a decent outing. But as I've mentioned, I sort of think the Colts are going to be a lot more competitive in this one than people are thinking. I think it's going to be a really close game at least. So I just don't see this game script really favoring Naheem Hines much. This next game is going to be one that's just really gross. I'm not going to bore you with too much analysis here. We've got the Texans visiting the Bears. You're going to start Brandon Cooks for the Texans. You're going to start David Montgomery for the Bears, and you're going to sit everyone else. I think that Dameon Pierce is getting a little bit more involved. I'd like to see him really just take control of that backfield, and I'd like to see the Texans move the ball a little bit better before I trust him. I think he's just going to have a tough time finding the end zone, so he's sort of like a touchdown-dependent flex play if you need him. Darnell Mooney, I would love to be trusting him, but he hasn't gotten any more than like he's got one catch in each game. So I'm not going to trust Darnell Mooney until I see this Bears offense turn it around a little bit. And yeah, that's all you need to hear about this one. Next game here is going to be the Jaguars at the Chargers. There's a bit of a wild card in this one, given that Justin Herbert does seem to be trending towards being a game time decision in this one. I don't think it changes too much of your decisions, but it's just going to really lower your expectations for some of these guys. On the Jaguars side of the ball, nothing really changes regardless of Herbert's status. You're going to start Kirk, you're going to start James Robinson, you're going to start Evan Ingram. I don't really trust Zay Jones or Travis Etienne quite yet, especially given that I do expect the Chargers to either be dealing with a limited Herbert or a missing Herbert. I don't think they're going to get up enough that you're going to see a ton of Travis Etienne in this one. Austin Eckler's obviously a start every single week. Mike Williams is the same. Keenan Allen the same thing if he plays. Obviously, you're going to start Justin Herbert, and you can start Gerald Everett in this one. I would much prefer to start Everett if Justin Herbert is active, but I think that the way Everett's played so far, you can sort of justify playing him either way. And the only really real sit for me this week for the Chargers is going to be Joshua Palmer. He hasn't been involved enough even without Keenan Allen. So if Keenan Allen's back, I don't really trust Palmer. And even if he isn't back, I don't know. Palmer saved his outing last week with that late time touchdown, and I'm just not going to bank on that this week. Next game here is going to be the Rams at the Cardinals. This one should be another fun, high-scoring game, and I think you're going to be able to get a lot of fantasy value out of this one. For the Rams, I'm going to start Matthew Stafford, I'm going to start Cooper Kupp, I'm going to start Allen Robinson, and I'm going to start Tyler Higbee. I do expect Tyler Higbee to have a really big game in this one. The Cardinals have struggled against tight ends so far. They've been pretty good against the number one wide receivers for each team, slowing down Devontae Adams last week, holding him to only 2 catches. This could be a bit of a down week for Cooper Kupp, but obviously you're going to start Cooper Kupp every week. I think Allen Robinson's going to have another good game. On the Cardinals side of the ball, you're obviously starting Kyler Murray every week. You're starting James Conner, Marquise Brown, and Zach Ertz. James Conner does look like he could be a game time decision come tomorrow. So I think that if you need to play a backup there, I think you can play Darrell Williams. I think he's going to be the one that gets more carries and he's going to have a better shot at scoring. But ideally, I don't want to start any of these backups, even if James Conner misses. And on the Rams side of the ball, at the running back position, I think I just want to pass on that this week. It's been too murky. I don't really know who the true starter is there. Neither one of them even looks good. So I don't want to play a running back that I'm not confident in their workload and I'm not confident in their ability. So I'm going to sit both Rams running backs until I see more clarity going forward. Next game here is going to be the Packers at the Buccaneers, and a bit of a surprising matchup in that I think this one's going to be pretty low scoring, even though we're dealing with two Hall of Fame quarterbacks here. But for that, I think you really can't really start many pass catchers in this one. I have both running backs for the Packers as pretty obvious starts. They're going to be starts every single week. Leonard Fournette's a guy you're going to start every single week, and I think the only receiver you can really trust in this one's going to be Russell Gage. The Buccaneers are going to be missing pretty much everyone on that side of the ball. They're not going to have Mike Evans this week due to the suspension. I don't think Julio's going to play. They just signed Cole Beasley off the street. I don't think Beasley's going to be involved enough. So Russell Gage should lead this team in targets if Fournette doesn't. So he's a start in the flex if you need him. I think both these quarterbacks are just going to be just outside of my top 12 this week. So I'd prefer to sit them if you have better options. I'm going to sit all of the Packers wide receivers. None of them really separated. I know Lazard got the touchdown last week, but only 2 catches. Not going to chase that. And I already talked about the Bucs wide receivers. I'm not really going to trust any of them other than Gage. Perriman is a deep league flex dart throw if you need him, but he's going to need another touchdown to pay off, and I don't want to bank on that. The next game is going to be the Falcons at the Seahawks. This one's a pretty gross game. One of these teams is going to somehow get a win. They don't really deserve to have any, but one of them's going to. On the Falcons side of the ball, you're going to start Cordarrelle Patterson in this one. It's a really nice matchup, and he's getting enough work that I think you can start him. I don't love him, but he's a low-end running back too for me. You're obviously going to start Drake London this one. I think Drake London's going to be a must-start going forward. He just looks like the real deal. He's been really talented so far. I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on. So Drake London's going to be a must-start going forward. And Kyle Pitts, I know it's been a rough start, but he's probably going to have a bounce-back week this week. They're going to get him more involved. They need to get him more involved if they want to start winning football games. And like I've said before, the tight end position sucks. You have to start your tight end if you have one that you paid up for. So Pitts is going to start for you this week. On the Seahawks side of the ball, I think you can start DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. This Falcons defense is being torched pretty early this season. The Seahawks coaching staff has talked about opening up the offense a little bit this week and really trying to get the ball downfield more. That does lend itself to a bit more production out of both these wide receivers. You might see some more turnovers out of the Seahawks, but we don't really care from a fantasy perspective. I'm going to sit both Seahawks running backs, Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny in this one. It's not really clear who the starter is. They could get down early. I mean, this game should be close. Maybe the Seahawks will try to run the ball more than they did last week, but it's just going to be hard for them to run the ball effectively. Neither one of these guys is going to get enough volume or catch enough passes for me to trust them. You're going to need a touchdown for them to bail you out. And obviously, you're not going to start either of these quarterbacks, but if you need to, you could play Mariota as a deep league flex or in super flex, or it's just a really deep league streamer if you're just sort of screwed at the position. The Sunday night game this week, we have the 49ers visiting the Broncos. For the 49ers side of the ball, it's going to be pretty easy. You're going to start Debo. You're going to start Jeff Wilson. You're going to start George Kittle. George Kittle, like I've said, the tight end position is really barren. You drafted George Kittle for him to be a stud for you. You have to play him. I would like to sit Brandon Ayuk if I can this week, along with Jimmy Garoppolo. Ayuk's just going to be the third option in this passing game. He could have a good week every single week, but he's not going to be a guy I can trust quite yet. I need to see a little bit more. On the Broncos side of the ball, you're obviously going to start Russell Wilson. I know maybe some of you are panicking on Russ, but I'm not at all. I think he's going to be just fine. He had a pretty decent fantasy outing in week 1, and last week was just a tough week. I mean, they just can't get the ball in the end zone when they're in the red zone so far, but Russ has historically been a really good red zone quarterback. That's going to turn around. I'm not worried about that at all. You're going to start Javonte Williams every single week. He's like leading the running back position in targets so far this season, and he's a beast on the ground. So Javonte is going to be a must start. He's probably going to finish the year as a top 10 running back. And you're going to start both Broncos wide receivers, Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is not a lock to play in this one, but if he starts, you've got to play him. I don't think that another wide receiver would step up and be a must start if Jeudy does miss. KJ Hamler is a deep league dart throw if you need it, but he's also questionable himself, and I don't love that option. I'm also going to sit Alberto in this one. I know he's got a lot of talent, but he didn't have a catch last week. I don't want to trust to play him, and I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon in this one. I don't think the Broncos are going to have enough of a lead to really lean on their running game in the second half, so Melvin Gordon's going to be a sit for me in this one. And for our last game of the week, we've got the Cowboys at the Giants. This one's going to be pretty gross. I doubt there's going to be a whole lot of fantasy implications in this one. And it's going to be pretty easy for you to decide who to start. I think you're obviously going to start CeeDee Lamb. You draft him to be your wide receiver 1. He hasn't quite been that, but last week was encouraging given the fact that they have Cooper Rush. He still managed to put up a decent fantasy outing. I think he'll be a wide receiver 2 for you until you get Dak back. And I think Zeke is just a must start here. He's got touchdowns in like 4 straight games against the Giants. He's still clearly getting the work. He doesn't look great. He's not special. He's not going to win you your game week, but given how thin the running back position is, I think he's got a good shot to be finished as a top 20 running back this week. And on the Giants side of the ball, you're starting Saquon Barkley, and you're going to bench everyone else. I think you kind of have to bench Tony Pollard in this one. You can play him if you need to, but just know that you're going to need 1 touch to go for 30 or 40 yards for him to really put together a really quality outing, and I'm just not going to bank on that. And the Giants wide receivers are just a mess. Wan'Dale Robinson's been declared out. Kadarius Toney is going to be questionable for this one. I don't want to play Richie James. I just don't want any part of this Giants passing game until I see more clarity out of either Kadarius Toney or Wan'Dale. So I'm going to be out on all those guys as well. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.